Hello, everyone. It's Charlton, and I want to talk about the Kavanaugh case, testimony, all of it, the hearing, real quick. But I'm just going to focus on a few things, mostly just one thing, and then just make a few other miscellaneous observations. But I'm focusing on the letters, and just even one thing in the letters. Mostly the handwritten letter, which she wrote down during the polygraph, and she was basically asked two questions about the letter. Okay, that's what she was asked. She was given a long interview, as I understand it, and then she was asked to write down what happened, and then asked two things. Is there anything false in this letter? She answers no. And did you make up anything in this letter? She answers no. But according to the polygraph, administrator, those two questions were answered truthfully. And I just wanted to compare one thing to, and I'll show you in a second, to her letter to Dianne Feinstein, which is right there. All right, but as it relates to, there's one thing that the prosecutor, Rachel Mitchell, who I thought did a really good job. I really did. And my opinion of her as time has gone by has even grown. And I really liked her style, and I think I don't know. I think as this thing, I don't know if it's going to get resolved quickly or not, but her role in this, I think, is going to expand, even without even making another appearance, because I think she did a really good job. But the one thing I'm looking at here is about when she asks her about the polygraph, and when she did at the time, I thought it's one of the things that stood out to me, maybe the thing that stood out to me the most. Is has she ever had any prior experience with polygraphs? And she asks her, multiple questions. Probably one of the most probing times during the thing. She was really quite gentle with her for reason, but she asks her not only have you been are you aware of countermeasures, but she actually goes on to ask her something else. I can't even remember. I'm going to play it right now. Let me do that, and then I'll come to the letters. And I just have one question, one observation. So let me do that, and and then I'm going to plug in my microphone. And all right.
Left my grandmother's funeral at Fort Lincoln Cemetery that day and was on tight schedule to get a plane to Manchester, New Hampshire. So he was willing to come to me, which was appreciated.
So he administered a polygraph on the day that you attended your grandmother's funeral?
Yeah, correct. Okay. Or it might have been the next day. I spent the night in the hotel, so I don't remember the exact day.
Have you ever had discussions with anyone besides your attorneys on how to take a polygraph?
Never.
And I don't just mean countermeasures, but I mean just any sort of tips or anything like that.
No, I was scared of the test itself, but was comfortable that I could tell the information and the test would reveal whatever it was going to reveal. I didn't expect it to be as long as it was going to be, so it was a little bit stressful.
Have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who was looking to take a polygraph test?
Never.
Okay. Did you pay for the polygraph yourself?
Okay, so she asked her not just about countermeasures, and there are actually specific countermeasures. Some physical things that you can do. Obviously I didn't know this, but I looked it up, and because I had this other sort of crackpot theory, which maybe I'll suggest, but of taking sedatives, antiperspirant on fingertips. That's never heard of that. Definitely tack placed in shoe, biting tongue, lip, or cheek to basically just fool the machine, I guess. But she also asked her to, have you ever had somebody tell you about tips and stuff like that, or you yourself told somebody? Again, I just thought it was strange that she dove a little deeper on this, and it made me think that maybe the prosecutor suspected that she somehow fooled the lie detector test. That she had passed it, erroneously. So, and that's what I was looking at these letters for. And one thing stood out at me to me more than anything else, by far. And it has to do with this right here. The 4 people crossed out, and then boys and a couple of girls. And it's not just that this is different than the original letter to Dianne Feinstein, where she says, included me and 4 others, okay? And according to, I think, all the previous reports, that's what's in the notes to the therapist, all right? That it's her and 4 others. No names. Kavanaugh's name is not listed. We don't know anything about the other 4 others, but that's what was reported is in the notes to the therapist. So when she wrote 4 people and then crossed it out and wrote boys and a couple of girls, it's like she was writing down the story she had written down before or told before, but she realized that something's new, okay? Something's different in this story. So, and she knew that she couldn't write 4 people and a couple of girls. It couldn't be that way. So she would have to cross out people and make it boys and a couple of girls. And to me, that's almost acknowledging, something that's something that's wrong as you're doing it. And it would shock me that, because not just the difference from this version to this version, but the fact that she realized the difference while she's doing it, okay, and had to change it in the moment and on her feet. Think of, this go from 4 to boys and a couple of girls. To me, you would think that would show up in the test results. When she was asked, was anything in this letter false or I mean, I don't know. I mean, it really did. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. It's funny because my heart rate is going up right now as I'm and I'm not absolutely convinced of my own story. I'm not. But actually, because of it, my adrenaline is running and I'm getting nervous just talking about it. So you would think the person who's actually in that moment, and again, let me just start that over again. She realizes that people is not 4 people. It can't be 4 people. She has to cross out 4 people and make it boys, 4 boys and a couple of girls. Like, if it was going to be, I don't know. I'm not absolutely convinced of my own thing. You can make your own judgment, okay? I mean, that's fair. I'm not, and but that's what I was thinking there. Okay, and these are all just, it's just thoughts of my own. So I mean, it's, this actually disputes my own video just from yesterday, where I basically was saying that they kind of maybe had multiple versions and crafted multiple versions ahead of time. And who knows? We don't know what other versions are out there, maybe, that could have been brought forward if the story was different, I mean, but whatever. I mean, I'm just illustrating that these things are just my own ideas, and I'm not like saying I'm wrong all the time, even within 24 hours, I figure out that that's not right. Okay, so, I mean, that's the majority of the thing that I wanted to discuss. The other things are kind of miscellaneous. I did have a question about the door. I mean, because supposedly the front door is the reason that this sort of precipitated this whole thing, that they were doing a major remodel in 2012, right around that time, and she was insisting on a second front door, and and that's why her husband kept probing, and she ended up telling him, and she claims she actually used the name of the individual, I think, to her husband, but even though the name is not listed in in the therapy notes. That's certainly possible. But it's just the front door. I mean, I had somebody, a very smart person, and it didn't occur to me, actually. First question she asked me, it's a very smart person, was, what about the back door, and then, all the doors in the house, the garage door, side door, So, and it's like, well, yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. And the other thing was that, in her testimony, I noticed that they now use that front door to I think it's turned into a separate room that they rent out to Google interns, okay, to complete strangers in the same home, which I assume is completely, separate from her own living arrangements. But nevertheless, if the necessity for a second front door was because of your fear or anxiety of this trauma that took place of being sexually assaulted when you were 16, then the notion that then using that front door to have complete strangers live in your in a home that's part of your home that you rent out, it's probably separate. It just seemed a little bit strange to me. The logic didn't seem to totally add up. As well as, I mean, what about all the time, for 30 years up until that particular moment, and as I understand it, they have a second home, a beach home. I mean, you could go on and on. I mean, it's almost like, it's like I've said this in other videos where you start at the end and you work backwards, okay, to try to get to an answer. And the end is, I was sexually assaulted, and how did I don't know. All right, so Senator Amy Klobuchar was just on State of the Union, and they were actually talking. The first thing they opened up with was Brett Kavanaugh's asking her about her drinking and has she ever blacked out. He asked that of more than one person, not of blacking out, but do you drink? But not everybody. He only did it to select individuals, okay? And then she went on to say that her father is actually in AA to this day as a 90-year-old, and he was a lifelong alcoholic. Washington, D.C., as I understand it, and I'm a former huge partier, okay, is a party in town, is a big party in town. And my understanding is that, many congressional persons have substance abuse problems, man, and it's not just drinking, even though I'd say drinking is probably the prime candidate, So I just thought that was interesting. And he later apologized to her for asking that, because she was asking, have you ever blacked out? And he said, have you, And, but he didn't ask that of all the senators. And and there were other senators that asked him. I don't know. All right. Well, I want to wrap this up. And I think that's everything that I will say. The other thing that seemed a little strange to me was the two main witnesses, it seems, in this so far. I mean, there's other ones, but the two that seemed to be central to the story was her lifelong friend. I just thought of a couple other things. Leland Kaiser, who still she's actually come out and clarified her statement. In her statement, she clarifies her statement by saying she doesn't necessarily refute what Christine Blasey Ford has testified to. She actually believes, okay? But still, she is exactly the same as before. She doesn't recall being at the party she's being described, and she doesn't even recall knowing Brett Kavanaugh. Okay, those two things remain. She's just saying, I believe her, but I mean, I guess she's her friend, so she's a little bit more of a relevant witness on that. But we could all say, there's millions of people who are saying they believe her. So, but I just found it interesting that the two main central witnesses to this, Leland Kaiser and Mark Judge, also are two people that, and quite publicly, people know this, that are people that wouldn't want to be in the public spotlight because Leland's got severe health issues that I don't even know what they are, but I think she has major medical issues that has just made her to the point where somebody needs to care for her. I have no idea. I really have. I'm sure it's it's probably quite sad, and I think it's just it might even have to do with her because she was an athlete, like a pro golfer, amateur pro golfer, very accomplished in that, and it could have been from that, like some kind of bone. I'm not sure. I know she had. There was pictures of her neck with pins in it from. I don't know if that's from injuries or what, but that was from 2005. I don't know. No, from 2012. I don't know. I'm just saying, somebody that can't get into the public spotlight very easily and kind of wouldn't want to, because if you're basically somebody that's, in a state where you're being cared for by others and you literally can't even take care of yourself, that's not exactly fun to go out into the public domain and have everybody, see that. It's just like, it's like having the whole world come into your hospital room, and the other one is Mark Judge, who, because of his history with drug addiction and I think, nearly dying on a couple occasions, according to Brett Kavanaugh, and I think suffering from leukemia, and just having struggles throughout his life, would not want to come into the public domain. My point is that the two main central characters, witnesses to this, are two people that conveniently wouldn't want to, come forward into and give interviews and testify in public and so forth. And lastly, and this is not, Rachel, and I saw a report of this, but they were actually just clarifying on State of the Union right now, and actually, because Klobuchar is a former prosecutor, Jake Tapper was asking her this, that Rachel Mitchell has already said that as a sex crimes prosecutor, there's no way she could prosecute this case. She could never bring this case forward. And what I didn't know, and I learned in State of the Union from Jake Tapper, is that she couldn't even get a search warrant with the information or the testimony so far of what's the evidence that there is in this case. She couldn't even get the search warrant. Forget about or prosecute. And that's the story there, man. It's gonna have to stand. It's a little bit mumble and jumble, but that's gonna have to do. All right, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I will see you in the next video. Later, man.